All right, guys, so for this car, not even car, this video, we are getting to demonstrate exactly what we learned at Knowledge Fest. And to show you, it is the 2023-2024 GMC Sierra or GM Denali, these vehicles with the Bose system. So let's go ahead and get in the car. And I'm gonna go ahead and get in here and show you if I can climb up in this thing. Good Lord. One, super nice display. Everything across the board on this truck is fancy. But the biggest part is when we got this big old screen in here. Trying to change this out, you're just not going to. It's not there yet. It's brand new. So what we need to do is we're gonna go ahead and turn the car on. He's got his Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, all that stuff, but we take a listen to this thing. It's lacking. It's lacking. So what we're gonna do is use the customer's equipment and put a 4-channel, some subs, actually 3 subs in here, and make this thing rocking. But to do so, it's not as easy as it once was with these older vehicles, where we just find your input wires, hook it up, we're done. These vehicles have factory amps, and a lot of vehicles do have factory amps, not a big deal. But these specifically are coming out with Allpass filters. And we're going to show you today what we learned at Knowledge Fest and how to accommodate and know exactly how to integrate into the OEM. So follow me, follow along as we get this torn apart and show you the process to just diagnose and figure out what equipment we need to make this sound phenomenal. All right, so we're actually going to start off back here in this area here, simply because the factory amp is back here behind the seat. I'm not going to pull the seat out to get to that factory amp because we still need the factory amp. We're not getting rid of it, we're incorporating it and manipulating it. First, we're going to go right here. So I'm going to start pulling out all these floor mats, scoot this seat forward, take this out, find the wires that I ran right here for all the speakers, cut them, put load resistors on, and then use the IRTA. I don't have my light on. Where'd my light go? Found it. Take that. I love electric seats, but this is what I hate about them. It's gonna take forever. Manual seat had done 2 seconds. All right, guys, so I went ahead and found the speaker wires. These are the fronts. I've got your front tweets, which are actually 3s, and your front 6.5s, okay? So what we're gonna wind up doing is we're gonna put these load resistors on because there's no speaker hooked up to the amplifier and we don't wanna freak the amplifier out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hook these up. We're gonna have our inputs going in, just like so, and then we're gonna have our outputs coming out, and that's what we're gonna hook up to this guy here, the IRTA. And then we're going to have the output of the IRTA going into the iPad, and we're going to use the RTA on the iPad, real-time analyzer on the iPad, and we're going to have left input, right input, and then sum together and show you what an all-pass filter looks like. And the only way to do so is using this tool. This is why we do this, is because this factory amp that has an all-pass filter on here, if you don't know what that is, you're about to find out. And the reason why we do all of this just for consultation is to figure out what you need to put in this car to adapt for the all-pass filter. If you don't adapt to it, things gonna sound like total junk, and you're not gonna be happy and say, man, this system cost me this much and it sounds like junk. I bought these speakers, I bought this amp, it doesn't sound good. It's not the speakers, it's not the amp, it's the manipulation of the factory signal that you're getting. And we can't just get signal from back of the radio because the back of the radio is all data. converts it into analog on the output side of the amplifier, and has that factory EQ and tune on it, which this will show, and then we can rectify. So I'm gonna hook this up, get this going. Next time you see me, I'll have this all displayed, ready to go for you. Alright guys, so now I've got that control piece hooked up. We're going to go to the radio. We're going to play some pink noise. We're going to fade it all the way to the front so we don't have any noise actually playing through speakers, because we don't want to play pink noise, and I don't want to hear it. I want to see it digitally on the speaker wires. So let's go ahead and set this up. Alright, so we faded all the way to the front. Go back, make sure equalizer. I want to turn that bass, and we want to make it flat because we want a flat response. So now that we've done that, make sure I got my pink noise for the DD1. That's the brand where we got the noise from. And then I'm checking. This is the input on one of the channels. Wow. That's pretty messed up. So that is what we are getting out of the front right mid. It has got 2 all-pass filters. All right, so now that we got this equalized out, we got it turned up a little bit, and all we have is just front. What we're going to wind up doing is we're going to go back there, start playing with the RTA, turn left on, right on, so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and get back there. Alright guys, so now we've got pink noise playing through the radio. Okay, you can't hear anything because it's been cut and put into this. It's all analog. That's what we're looking at, is the analog signal. We have our DMRTA right here on the iPhone, specifically made for the iPhone or Apple products. What this does is I'm going to hook up left channel. And this is what we are seeing digitally before we put it into the amplifier. So you can already see, I mean, there is a huge dip right there, about 125 hertz. It goes back up, dips back down about the 260 range, back up, back down about 1K, and then shoots way high. I mean, they're between 1K to 16K. That is a huge, huge difference in dB. So this is what we're looking at. This is what we see. Let's turn off the left channel. And we're going to turn on the right channel. And that doesn't really scare me. It doesn't worry me any. It just says, hey, we've got a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. And we're going to have to rectify that. But let's turn on the right channel. It looks identical, right? I'm going to pick this up so you can see this. This is what this right channel looks like. And it doesn't matter if I do this. Okay? I'm going to turn the right channel off. I'm going to turn left channel back on. This is the left channel. These are 2 identical looking channels. But when I sum them together, watch what happens. We get a huge dip starting right about the 1K. So it's just the left channel right now. Sum the right channel. Yep, drops off right here. 500 goes all the way down. So we practically have nothing going on from about 1,000 above. What that means is from that 500 point on, they have an all-pass filter. It has flipped the frequency 100 degrees out of phase on one of the channels. 9 times out of 10, it's the right channel. When those 2 are put together, it cancels out all those frequencies. Now, when we just do one at a time, they look just fine because, well, it's still producing that note. But when they're both produced together and one's 180 degrees out of phase, we get absolutely nothing, and it's going to sound really weird. So now we know we have a all-pass filter starting off at the right about the 500 range, and it just slopes down from there until it's practically nothing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna unhook the channel for our mids, so we're getting nothing. I want to turn the right channel off. I'm gonna hook this up to the tweets. Okay, so now we see the tweeter range, which I'm actually gonna turn that up so I can get a little bit more and see if there's anything below it. Okay. So now that we have the tweeters or the threes hooked up and it's actually horn loading, but that's a whole nother video. We can see, all right, it picks up right at 4K and there's nothing else being produced below it. It looks like it's trying to pick up, what, 80 hertz, 125 hertz. I want to turn that all the way up to see if it brings anything else up. Wow. All right. Nonetheless, we got a huge dip right there at 4K. I mean, it just, nothing, 4K. So it's picking up about the 4,000 hertz. So what we're gonna do is if we look at that real quick, let's think about that. If it's 4,000 hertz is where it's picking up, and I mean huge dB difference between 2K, which is practically nothing, and then you got 4K starting off, and it's way up there by, I want to assume like that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, almost 18 dB difference between 2K to 4K. That's ridiculous. So it's practically nothing. But if we go back to the front mids, which had the drop off at 1K, it means you're missing information here. From 1K to 4K, there's going to be absolutely nothing, and that's why it's going to sound like junk. So when we get in here and we rectify the Allpass filter to not be 180 degrees out of phase, we can get a smooth signal all the way across the board here, where it should look nice and flat. And that's what we want, because once we get it nice and flat, then we can manipulate the sound to be directed towards a 6 and a 3, then have our good crossover points and have them basically hand off from one frequency to the other frequency for that speaker to take over and give a good quality sound. But let's go ahead and see. This is the left speaker right now. Let's hook up the left, the right, sorry. They look identical, but let's sum them together. Looks like we got an all-pass filter starting right here, about the 16K, which is not that bad, honestly. If they look identical to each other, we'll go left, turn off the other side, look identical, sum them together, and we get that slope that crosses down here. That tells me there's an all-pass filter starting off right about the 8K, 9K area is where it's starting to have the all-pass filters. Not a huge deal, but the bigger component that I'm real worried about is the fact that we have an all-pass filter here on the 6.5s. And that is where it's going to throw us off. If I change, turn off the right, hook up the left, see how it goes back up. We want this to be nice and flat all the way across. But when I sum it together and we have that huge dip, we don't want that. That's going to cause all sorts of issues. So now that we know we have an all-pass filter type 1, because it only affects this side. If it was 2, it would look like a V and the ignition just shut off. But nonetheless, at least now we know we have an all-pass filter 1 that's affecting it right about that 500 to 1K range, and it's continuing to the right side. The tweets still have an all-pass filter, which we can rectify as well, starting about the 8 to 9,000 range. Rectify that. So we're going to need an all-pass filter for the front right mid. We're going to need an all-pass filter for the front right tweet to manipulate the input voltage for the DSP. So now that we know that, we can go ahead and start putting this back together, and we can start testing with the customer's equipment, make sure that 1, it has all-pass filters, and 2, it actually allows us to manipulate the input voltage of an all-pass filter. And why the input and output makes a difference is because right now this is the input into the amp. When we use an RTA, a real-time analyzer, we are analyzing the car and how the speakers respond to the car, not the voltage. If you try and rectify an all-pass filter with an RTA, measuring how it's responding inside the car, you will never fix it. It's going to be a nightmare. So what you need to do is rectify it before it ever reaches the amplifiers. So it goes into the DSP, you manipulate it and get a flat response out of the DSP, and then you send it to your amplifiers. Look at it with an RTA and how it's responding in the vehicle, and then you can manipulate the output on the DSP to get it to sound flat response in the car. I know it's confusing, but we can go into more depth later. We've got all that done. I'm going to put this back together, and I'm going to show you what I mean by RTA. And I'm going to actually hook up the O-scope in the car, because you saw what it looked like here on the iRTA on this iPad. I'm going to show you on the DMRTA that's using a mic picking up sound, because right now this isn't picking up sound because it's looking at the analog input. If I undo this and then it starts using the mic that's here on the phone, you can see that it's changing from physical sound and picking up through the mic here. I know I'm using lingo. The DMRTA is Digital Real-Time Analyzer. So it analyzes the input of the microphone of a room. So I can go into a room, and this is how we get your car to sound 10 times better and make it sound like it's actually at a concert. Because whenever you go to a concert, those guys have already analyzed and figured out what sounds best. And they can figure, hey, we got a really big peak. I got a dip right here at 1K, so 1K, I'm missing information. It's kind of like a movie, and you're watching through the movie, and then you just skip one of the scenes. And that scene could be like 5 minutes. But that 5 minutes has a lot of information to tell you about the story. If it's missing, then you've lost and don't really know what's going on, or you're missing a piece of information that's crucial to the story. That's why we want a good, clean, flat response. That way we have all the information of the music to really, truly hear how they want us to hear the sound and the music that they produced. If you got speakers and all it's doing is between 500 hertz down to 20 hertz and you got nothing above that, the song sounds like crap. You bring it from 20 hertz all the way up to 20,000 hertz, I mean, you just now have 4K Ultra HD vision of this movie that sounds so much better. So that's what we use RTA or a DMRTA for, is to find those peaks, bring them down, find those valleys, bring them up, or we try and bring everything down, nothing really up, unless we absolutely have to. We bring it all to a flat response to give you the best image and best sound and how that song was meant to be heard. If you've never experienced a true flat response and having that imaging, I recommend that you come in, let us show you the difference between a song that you've listened to 1,000,000 times and you've never had the experience of hearing it with a true response and how they meant to be heard. You'd notice so many things that you've never heard before. So, with that being said, I'm going to hook up the DMRTA and we'll put this back together, hook up the DMRTA and play the same pink noise to show you that it's totally different outcome. So let's get to it. So before I put all this back together and start using the DMRTA with an external mic, I wanted to show you the DMRTA is a little bit more complex than the iRTA. The iRTA makes it for very simplistic and ease of use, where I just get in the car, have an iPad, I'm good to go, I'm done. I can see everything I'm doing. Whereas the DMRTA, we have it hooked up here, we need a source for television, we need to run our own wires here, we have to have power for both the TV and the computer, which the computer is just a little stick back here hooked up to HDMI instead of having a laptop. So a lot more components to the DMRTA, but the DMRTA does a lot more than the iRTA. But the iRTA is the crucial part that we need to identify the all-pass filters on these cars. If you don't have an iRTA and you have a DMRTA, and you can access this better than having an iRTA, I'll show you how to identify the all-pass with the DMRTA as well. So on here we have speaker level input, We also change the monitor of the speaker level, or the RTA, the real-time analyzer, how we're analyzing it, whether it's speaker level in, unbalanced RCA in, or a microphone. I've set it to speaker, I've turned the line level up, I have it at 60 dBs. As we can see, this is just one channel. This is a left channel. We've got all of this frequency, which is a full range frequency, but you can see, I mean, it skyrockets once it hits, you know, about 5K and just keeps going up. Watch what happens when I hook up the other channel and I put both channels together and I'm looking at it on the RTA. It's going to do the exact same thing the iRTA did. I just have the left channel. I'm about to hook up the right channel, and as soon as I hook up the right channel, we can see the Allpass filter start to take place at that 500 range. If I unhook it, I'm going to go ahead and unhook it while you continue looking at the screen. Bam, goes up. Doesn't matter whether I unhook the right or the left, it will give me that image. As soon as I hook them both together, we can see that one of those channels is 180 degrees out of phase starting at the 500 range, and that is an Allpass filter. And now that we've identified it, it's time to get the amplifier and the DSP to rectify the input, give us a clean, clear output, and then we can go to tuning. But we still have to get the customer's permission and make sure he wants to go through with it and get him a price. Once we get that and we can set up a date, we'll come back and we will show you the rest of the tuning. But before we do that, I still want to show you what it looks like when we measure with a microphone on how the speakers respond inside the car, to show you what it sounds like inside the car. Because seeing it here and seeing it with a mic is two totally different things. I want to go ahead and reset this up with my phone to play the same pink noise. But this time, instead of everything being disconnected and running into the DMRTA or the iRTA, it's running to the speakers. Now I've got the microphone set up right here. Doesn't matter whether it's here or the driver's side. We're just trying to show you what we're looking for when we see the mic, what the mic picks up, and it picks up how the sound is reacting to the vehicle. So when we tune, we're really not tuning the speaker, because the speaker just plays music and it plays as is. The behind the door panel in front of it, the footwell, this, the dash, everything takes into play on how it reproduces when we sit here. Reflections, time alignment, all that stuff. So we put this here to see, hey, how's it sound whenever I'm in the passenger seat or the driver's seat? So we're actually tuning to make up for the reactance inside the vehicle. But I just want to show you everything we did. Everything's the same. We summed both left and right. Technically, we got left playing and we have right playing. And then we're going to see what it looks like on the RTA side of how it sounds in the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I'm going to turn it up, and pink noise just sounds like a little bit of static, so it's not going to sound good for just a second. Okay, so now that we have it playing inside the car, we can see here, I'm actually going to have to change this to about 60 dB. We can see we've got frequencies in the low. We've got our dip here, like our low end is way higher. It comes down and it kind of peaks up right around, you know, the 2 to 4K, and then it drops back off. We cannot physically see the Allpass filter, how it sounds in the car, but we can see that there's a huge dip here. It looks like a little smiley face. We want to change that to where you can kind of see the ghost lines that are right here. We want that to be our target curve. We want these lines to match here some way, somehow. And that's what the DSP is for. That's what all this equipment is for, is to make it sound better. Let me turn this down so I don't have static. So this is just showing you the reason why you cannot address or find out that you have a Allpass filter on this truck just by simply listening to the car. You can't just simply put a mic in there and say, oh, hey, it's got an Allpass filter on it. No, you have to use some sort of input voltage identifier to see the volt. One, it tells you voltage, and two, it tells you the frequency of what's being sent through that wire. We do the left, we do the right, they look identical, you sum them together, it has a dip, but audibly, we saw that we didn't have that cutoff like we did here. This is just something to take in mind when you're trying to integrate into these 2022s and up Chevy, GMC, Denali's. You gotta take the extra time to identify this issue. I wish it was a one and done deal, like, hey, yeah, this car 100% has an all-pass filter at this frequency, all-pass filter 1 or all-pass filter 2. No, everyone's gonna be different, and that's why you need these tools to identify whether you're a shop or whether you're trying to do this on your own and be a connoisseur in this field. If you want help, please contact us. That's why we're here, and that's why we make these videos, to give you an understanding of how this works. And to be honest, I've watched some videos on how-tos, and I'm like, nope, don't want to do it. I'll take it to the professional. And that's okay. There's no shame in doing so. That was just the beginning of diagnosing this car, finding what's going to work, what's not going to work, finding the equipment. And what I want you guys to do is, right now we're about 130 subscribers. 200 is our goal right now. And you guys can make it possible by hitting that like button, that subscribe button, staying up to date, and following us for new videos that are coming out, especially on this truck here. As it comes back and we get it in the shop and we put all this equipment in and completely bypass this and show you what a true clean signal sounds like. Bless you. But other than, you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.